Thank you very much indeed. Now, the speed at which most criminal cases in Northern Ireland are processed has got even slower since a highly critical report 18 months ago. That's according to a follow-up report published today by Criminal Justice Inspection NI. Dr. Michael Maguire is its chief inspector, and Michael joins us now in the studio. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
On average, I gather a criminal case here takes twice as long to complete as in England and Wales. And in fact, this figure's got worse since your last report in June 2010. So what is going on?
Well, I think the first thing to say, Conor, is that we're disappointed that delay remains a significant issue within the justice system. And indeed, when you look at youth cases, I mean, they're even longer. I mean, youth summons cases are around 7.5 times longer than England and Wales. And I think part of the problem is that many of the issues that we identified in the 2010 inspection, quality of police files, the way in which cases are managed, getting cases ready for court, still remain a problem. And indeed, we found this time round that there was a particular issue in the issuing of police summonses, which had an impact on the overall figures.
Why are they not putting the summonses out more sharply then? Why is there not more of a sense of urgency?
Well, I think that the two reasons. One is that the more summonses now are being issued through postal means of delivery, and 80% of them are served first time. But there was a rump, however, of about 20%, which remain difficult to serve because these are individuals quite often are involved in a number of different cases, so it's been difficult for the police to deliver the summonses, and quite often they need multiple visits to an individual to get them to deliver it. So there are problems in relation to how those summonses are put in place.
So what sort of timescales are we talking about from the moment of being arrested to actually ending up in a court? How long does it take?
Well, for youth summonses, the 2010 report said it was about 256 days. It's now 290 days, so that's up about 13%. For adult summonses, it increased from 220 to 270. That's up about 22%. So you can see quite an important increase in relation to how the bulk of people are processed through the justice system. And what we're saying now is because many of these issues that we've identified before are still there, now is the time, I think, to be thinking seriously about the introduction of a legal framework or statutory time limits.
And if you don't get bail, you're spending a lot of time in behind bars before your case even comes up.
Well, indeed, and this has been mentioned by the prison review team. The remands are a big issue, and people spending time on remand causes difficulties for the prison service because they don't go through programmes, they're not dealt with as part of the education regime. So there are knock-on effects for all aspects of the justice system in terms of delay. We did a report before Christmas on victims and witnesses, and it was one of the most unforgiving issues that we heard from victims and witnesses was the amount of time it took to process a case through the court. So you could be waiting 2, in some cases 3 years before you get your day in court, and this had a huge impact on victims and on witnesses, which again reinforces the importance of delay within the justice system.
You mentioned that figure 290 days there. Have you got a target figure of a number of days which you believe would be acceptable?
We haven't been explicit in relation to a target because there's been some debate around the introduction of statutory time limits, and the response to date has been we'll see whether things improve before we decide to go down that route. This follow-up report, and in the 2010 report I said that I would do a follow-up quite closely to see how performance was working, shows that overall things are getting worse in some cases. So we haven't been explicit in relation to a target, and I think now is the time to say, well look, in 2 years' time we will introduce statutory time limits with regard to youth cases, and at that point we can prepare and develop a target which we think we can meet.
Do you think you're just not being listened to, given that your previous report highlighted all this and it's got worse between now and then? I mean, you could feel a bit angry about this, couldn't you?
Quite the reverse, Conor. I mean, I think we did the 2010 report. It was important to me that we keep this, from an inspector point of view, under close scrutiny. I am aware that there's been a huge amount of activity taking place within the justice system. This is a complex issue. It's more than one organisation involved, and we need to get a more coordinated response. While we've seen lots of activity, I think by keeping it on the radar and by the inspectorate keeping a close scrutiny on it, this adds extra momentum to dealing with what is a difficult area. And I think we're now at the stage where statutory time limits will give that extra momentum to get the kind of change that we need to see.
Next time I interview you, you'll be looking for a sharp reduction in the number of days, essentially.
Well, I think that's the overall goal, because it's important for victims, for witnesses, for defendants, and in costs associated with the trial.
Michael Maguire, thank you very much.
Thank you.
How much does it cost to keep a prisoner in jail? Well, it's £45,000 a year in England and Wales and £95,000 here. Perhaps that's partly because there's 2.5 times the number of staff here pro rata than in the England and Welsh systems. So with the luxury of all that manpower, do we have a Rolls-Royce of a prison system? Well, a damning report out today points out that working practices are so woeful that there aren't enough staff to deliver an effective service. The report is from the Criminal Justice Inspection, and its Chief Inspector, Dr. Michael Maguire, joins me in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
I mean, on one hand, we have so many staff, but on the other hand, we don't have enough to deliver an effective service. Why?
Well, that was one of the issues that we wanted to look at in the inspection, because I'm conscious of the work that we've done, having delivered a number of critical reports about individual establishments. And I was keen to understand, well, what is it that's actually going on within prisons to get a sense of what we need to do moving forward, because it's only if we can get to grips with the issues that exist within the service can we then begin to plan for what we need to do next. And that was really the focus of what this inspection was about.
So what is going on? Well,
I think when we talk about costs, there's a number of issues that drive costs. I mean, one of them is the legacy of the past, and the security-related focus carries a huge number of costs with it. We have a small prison service that has overheads that others don't carry, in a sense. But one of the key issues also is resources. As you say, we have 2.5 times more officers than elsewhere. We pay them a third more. And what we need to do is to think about how those resources are applied within a prison service, because that fundamentally gets to the question as to what we want our prisons to do.
Is this not about management, though? I mean, throughout the report, there's criticism of almost a 3-tier. You've got headquarters, you've got management, and then you've got the prison office staff. And there seem to be serious problems in each of those tiers and the communication between the three.
Well, certainly we have identified a number of areas where we think that management could improve what it is that they do. It's about the kind of targets that are being set. It's about how you deliver against those targets. And it is about accountability and holding people accountable for change. Because one of the issues that exists within the service is there have been a number of recommendations. When we go back and do follow-ups, as we do with all our work, we then look at the extent to which they haven't been done. And we need to move away from a managerialist approach or a tick-box approach to delivering recommendations and doing things which actually make a difference in the individual establishments, because it's only by doing that can we address issues to do with the reduction of reoffending and challenging prisoner behaviour, which is what a prison system should be about.
Is the root of the management problem, though, not the Prison Officers Association?
Well, in the report, we talk about the industrial relations climate within the prisons, and at the time that we were doing the field work, there'd been a withdrawal of goodwill, just after a withdrawal of goodwill by the POA, and industrial relations in the prison system have not been good, and they've not been good for a number of years. And this is one of the areas that we think needs to be addressed if we are to plan for the future, because it is about developing a prison system that is fit for purpose in Northern Ireland, and one which is about addressing the issues to do with rehabilitation and challenging prisoner behaviour. That means putting those issues on the table that are going to make a difference.
We've had, as you've said, report after report about individual establishments, lots of criticism across the board. Now this very comprehensive look at the prison service. Does the government need to finally accept that they need to carry out some sort of redundancy programme similar to what happened with the RUC?
Well, I think the context for discussions around prisons now is different. We have the devolution of policing and justice. We have a new minister. We have a justice committee. We have an assembly that ultimately now are responsible for the prison's budget. In addition to that, we have a financial climate which is going to put increasing pressure on all public services. So I think the time is right now to be thinking about the future, to be thinking about what it is that we need to do to make a difference, and to put the right mechanisms in place that will fundamentally have a prison system which challenges behaviour and helps increase public protection.
But is that not part of the problem, though? Because of the financial climate, there isn't the money, and almost they need to go to London to say, this is an exceptional circumstance, this is the only way the prison service is going to be improved. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I'm not sure it'd be helpful to make an additional case for money. I'm not sure if that's possible within the current climate. The reality is we have a huge number of resources that are available within the prison service at the minute. It's about how those resources are allocated. And this isn't going to be an easy task. We're talking about a period of change that could well take 3 to 5 years, perhaps sooner, depending on how quickly we want things to happen. And therefore, we'll need to find the money from a variety of different sources. But I need to come back to the point about what the purpose of this report was. It was about setting out those issues very clearly that talk about the problems facing prisons in Northern Ireland, and to do that, to try and make a difference moving forward.
Okay, Dr. Michael Maguire, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.